Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to today's presentation in our Collegiate Recovery webinar series. My name's Olivia Pinelli and I'll be your host today. We're joined by Kateri Coyhis, the Executive Director of White Bison. The topic of today's presentation is an overview of the Wellbriety movement. These webinars are hosted by the Association of Recovery in Higher Education in order to support the growth and development of the collegiate recovery field. Just a few reminders and logistics before we turn things over to Kateri. Today's webinar will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube and the ARHE website. You'll be able to go back and access all of the information at that time. If you have any questions for our presenter, please enter them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your window, and there will be 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Supplemental materials will be provided by the presenters, such as slides, and if possible, we might email them out to webinar registrants afterwards. If you are having any technical difficulties or have logistical questions, please feel free to message us through the chat box on the right-hand side and direct message to all panelists if you can. We're always looking for ways to improve, topics to cover, and other feedback from our attendees. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time and let us know if you have any, and let us know about your experience today. Now to turn things over to Kateri. Kateri from the Mohican Nation is the Executive Director of White Bison in Colorado Springs. White Bison Inc. is an American nonprofit 501c3 corporation dedicated to creating and sustaining grassroots Wellbriety movement that provides culturally based healing to the next 7 generations of Indigenous people. Kateri joined the White Bison staff in 2001 after beginning her own journey into recovery. In her role as the Executive Director, she coordinates national training events and conferences, collects data for evaluations of federal grants, assists in the development of culturally based curriculum for youth and adults, assists the chairman of the board, and trains community leaders across the country to implement youth prevention program entitled Daughters of Tradition. Kateri received a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. Thank you for joining us today, Kateri, and I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody, or akwe, as they say in my language. Kateri Coyhis and Dinawethe. Ma ekanu keknom ndu bawakotum. So my name is Kateri Coyhis. I'm from the Mohican Nation, and I'm from the Turtle Clan on my father's side. And I'm also Norwegian, French, Irish, German, and a whole big mix of other stuff on my mom's side. So definitely grateful to be here today. And, you know, I just want to start out by saying, first and foremost, I am a person in long-term recovery, and for me, that means I have not used any alcohol or drugs since April 7th of 2012. So I just celebrated my 8 years of continuous sobriety, and I'm a grateful member of Wellbriety. I'm a mother, and I have 2 beautiful children. My daughter is 5, and my son is 2. And, you know, I'd like to just kind of tell you guys a little bit about my background before I get going, and, you know, why this movement means so much to me. So when I was 16, I was going on about a year of being addicted to methamphetamines and just a whole bunch of other drugs and alcohol. And I had an opportunity with White Bison. I got invited to do a walk across the United States from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. We did it to help raise awareness for domestic violence on women and children. And it was a 3.5-month journey where we literally walked, and we pretty much camped out in tents the whole time. We didn't stay in hotels or anything like that. But when I got to LA, I was 2 days sober and going through withdrawals, and nobody knew that. So I was detoxing on my own. And this was the first time I really had an opportunity to learn more about my culture. And so I got to be with a whole bunch of people who taught me about my culture, who were in recovery, who taught me about recovery. And, you know, a lot of them, I don't even know their names, but I owe them a debt of gratitude. And, you know, from there, I've kind of dedicated my life to giving back. And, you know, I'm honored to serve today as the Executive Director of White Bison. So let me pull up my little PowerPoint here. So as Olivia said, White Bison is a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1988, and our original mission was to bring 100 communities into healing by 2010, and we started out as a youth organization. But as we kind of grew and expanded in our programming, and we adjusted our mission. So now the mission is to provide a sustainable grassroots Wellbriety movement that provides culturally based healing for the next 7 generations of Indigenous people. And you'll learn a little bit more about why that's our mission statement and why it's important to us. So for those of you who may not be familiar, Wellbriety means to live a sober lifestyle that is balanced mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. It's about being connected to traditional principles, values, and natural laws. It's about walking the red road and creating a healing forest, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. So a long time ago, before colonization, this is what our traditional communities looked like. So we knew how to raise children. What we knew is that at the root level, we had our culture, we had our spirituality and our language, and we knew about the cycle of life. And we knew how to make our young men, our kids into young men and young women. And then from there, they were taught how to be elders. And the elders were very important and respected in our culture because of their wisdom and knowledge. And next to the Creator, they became the source of all the knowledge and guided us on how we were supposed to live our lives. So this is the system that we had. And we knew that we got this knowledge from the part of the earth that we lived on. So the earth gave us a set of principles, laws, and values, and there was a natural order that we followed, and it was the source of our native culture. So if there was woodlander tribes, they learned certain things. The people that lived in Alaska or the Northwest, they learned certain things. And this was all based on what we needed to know from the land that we lived on. But what we knew is that there was a physical world or a seen world, something that you could see, but there was also a spiritual world or an unseen world that you could not see, and that they were interconnected. And so we learned how to live in harmony with the earth. But then something happened to us. And it took us from a community that looked like this to a community that looked like this. And there was a breakdown of the family structure, and our family system started to fall apart. So instead of being rooted in culture and language and ceremony, we became rooted in anger, guilt, shame, and fear. And we started to see issues in our community such as alcohol, substance use, sexual abuse, codependency. There was unhealthy relationships. And so what started to happen from there is it impacted our kids. And so some of our kids started to go to prison. Some of our kids went to treatment. Some of our kids got involved into the court system. And then some of our kids went to the spirit world. So how was this done? And what happened to our communities? What did it take to destroy our communities? So I want to play a little clip for you all. Hopefully I don't think I shared my audio. Hold on just a minute. Sorry about that. There we go. So I want to play this little clip for you about what happened to our communities.
A long time ago, before you were born, the old people told a story about a visit from the wisdom keepers. The wisdom keepers told us the light skins are coming, and their numbers would be great. They will bring great destruction and confusion, that we will go through a time of testing. They will bring 4 mind changers to make us forget our ways. The mind changers would be a liquid, a black book, a song, and a card. They will take your land. They will poison the earth. They will bring disease and sickness. They will kill the women and the children. They will destroy our culture. Only our spirituality will be left. After the testing time, a great healing will take place. The eagles will come back. The buffalo will come back. We will come back. The prophecies will come true. We are now in a time of the fulfillment of prophecy. The story that happened has never been told. Now is the time to tell the story.
In 2008, a gathering took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The purpose of this gathering was to talk about intergenerational trauma. The pain and hurt at this conference was so intense that the elders instructed us to make a 7,000-mile journey across the United States. We traveled to current and former boarding schools to gather these stories from the people who attended when they were children. We recorded the stories of what happened to them.
The stories that we heard on this journey from these elders were so unbelievable. Some of the elders, they even had a very difficult time even talking about what went on there. Many of the elders who told us stories of what happened to them was the first time that they ever told a story to anybody, even their children, their spouses. No one had known the experiences that they had in these boarding schools as children.
Because this happened over 100 years ago, 130 years ago, and that historical trauma passes on from generation to generation. And we see many angry young people and others who don't even know why they're angry.
Denial can't remove the consequences of the choices in life that brought you here.
So they pulled our pants down, and that was our first whipping. And the first day I got there, the first night.
Whipped me all over my damn body.
We need to go back and honor those people and say sorry, because they really did suffer and starve.
Before she went to bed, she would always hear screams from the boys' side of the boarding school.
And yes, there was sexual abuse in our time. Yes, there was. But we weren't allowed to talk about it.
Thinking about all of the children, thousands and thousands of children. Maybe over 100 years that were taken from people they knew and loved, torn away and taken to a place they didn't know or understand.
But today I can just say that they brutally raped me over and over, one by one.
This isn't history. I mean, it's still with us. What has happened in the past will never leave us.
Where is our Schindler's List? Where is our Anne Frank? To be able to leverage that knowingness and insight, to have everybody to be held responsible for knowing this part of history, not for blame, victimization, or guilt, but simply to know.
Inside of you.
Why did we make this documentary? One is we want the world to know the story of the genocide of Native Americans. We also want the world to know the truth of what happened in the boarding schools. In order for us to heal from the intergenerational trauma, we choose to forgive.
So that was a little trailer from our Wellbriety movement journey of forgiveness. And as we said, we traveled to current and former boarding schools throughout the US. And our goal was to give survivors an opportunity to tell their story, sometimes for the first time, on what happened to them when they attended the schools. Not everybody's story was bad, but most of them, contained a lot of stories about physical and sexual and emotional and verbal abuse. And so it started, and then the other goal was to, spread the message of forgiveness and healing in our Indigenous communities. But it started in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and it was the model school for the nearly 500 schools that were set up in the US. And the goal was forced assimilation. So they wanted to assimilate the Indigenous population into mainstream culture. And it was sanctioned under about 42 US, or not 42, but it was sanctioned under a bunch of US presidents. They were government ran schools, they were church ran schools. And the kind of phrase or terminology that they used was kill the Indian and save the man. So this started in 1879 and it went through the early 1930s. So, what does that have to do with today and why are we telling the story? So what we're finding is that there's a term, if some of you aren't familiar, it's called historical trauma. So historical trauma is a combination of immense losses and traumatic events that are perpetrated upon an entire culture. It's actually a tactic of genocide. And for the Indigenous community, these losses included culture, language, land, people due to diseases and deaths and wars, their way of life, their spirituality, and then again, a loss of the family structure that were forced into the boarding schools. So if you imagine that there's a group of young people and they come into this school, their hair was cut, they were given Christian names or English names, they were forced to learn the English language, they were forbidden to speak their own language, which was the only language that they knew. And how they weren't raised around their family, they weren't raised around their parents, and they were raised around physical and sexual abuse and violence, and there was a loss of cultural identity. So when they did go home, they didn't know how to relate to their own families. And, it impacted every single generation after this happened in the boarding schools. And so, and again, instead of being rooted in the culture and ceremony and the language, they were rooted in anger, guilt, shame, and fear. So this is the cycle now that we have to look at, that we must break. And this is all due to the intergenerational and historical trauma. So what we're finding is that this is something that started out kind of in the unseen world. It was emotions and things that happen within. And, this loss of culture, we know that trauma now actually changes the epigenetic discourse of the DNA. So it's literally handed down and it's rooted in this unseen world. So what happens is as it starts to manifest into the physical world, then you'll start to see the issues around alcohol, sexual abuse, unhealthy relationships, codependency, violence. And there's normal trees too, but these are all the issues that we're seeing in the communities today, and this is what we have to look at healing. So oftentimes 2 to 3 generations will pass before the most challenging symptoms of trauma begin to show up in an individual, in families, in our communities. And cultures go through a grief process that's similar to that, except that it's passed down throughout generations. So what we're finding and what we're saying is due to the extensive research that we've read and seen, we haven't been looking at treating the root cause. So alcohol, Alcoholism, substance use, this is not the cause, it's a symptom. Meth, prescription drugs, heroin, these are not the cause, these are symptoms. Domestic violence is not a cause, it's a symptom. So we have to look at healing the whole community, and it needs to start with dealing with the cause, which is this trauma. So my question to you today is this something that can be changed? Is it possible to go from a community that currently looks like this back to a community that looks like this? And this is very possible, but how do we go about doing that? So you can't keep doing what you're doing and saying what you're saying and expect different results, right? We know that as people in recovery, that's a definition of insanity. So we can't keep doing that. And so we have to look at doing something else. So what is it that we can do? Well, White Bison has established a process for implementing change, and it's called the 4 Laws of Change, and it's using traditional knowledge. So the first law is changes from within. The second law says, in order for development to occur, it must be preceded by a vision. The third law says a great learning must occur. And the fourth law is you must create a healing forest. So the first law, changes from within, says all permanent and lasting change. All permanent and lasting change. All permanent and lasting change has to start on the inside and work its way out. So inside of every human being is the innate knowledge of your own well-being. And to ensure this for a person, then you have to start from within. So what we're saying is you have to set a goal, right? You have to set a goal, and then once you set that goal, you're able to see. So first you set the goal, and then you see. You do not see first. And you know, we have the choice. So inside of us, we have this innate knowledge. Every salmon has the innate knowledge on how to be a good salmon. Every bear has the innate knowledge on how to be a good bear. And we also got this gift. So the second law says, in order for development to occur, it must be preceded by a vision. So if there's no vision, there's no development. And the teaching is that you move towards and become like that which you think about. So once a person or a family starts to grow, they need to create a vision or picture that they will use to develop themselves. And it's important to develop a vision of the role that a healthy community, a healthy family plays, and the values that a healthy person has in their relationships with family, within the community. And the Wellbriety movement helps each person take the steps to create a better life for themselves. This law of vision ensures that your future will not be an accident. So you have to visualize these changes and set the vision. So you move towards and become like that which you think about. If that's true, then isn't it important then to be thinking about what it is that you're thinking about? So what are you thinking about? What are you envisioning for your life as a person in recovery? What are you envisioning on how you're gonna interact with your family and your community? So changes from within. In order for development to occur, it must be preceded by a vision. And then a great learning must occur. So everyone needs to be part of the change in order for change to occur. Right now, it's like our communities, we're like living in this fog. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to lift that fog and by raising awareness. And that's what we do through advocacy. And that's what we do through some of the programs that White Bison has to offer. We want to raise that fog. We want to raise awareness. We want to raise consciousness. And in order for that to take place, the whole cycle has to be involved, from young people, baby, youth, adult, elder, from within the individual, the family, the community. If the children are to change, then the parents and the relatives and the family and the elders have to change. So what are we doing to kind of help facilitate this great learning law? We have different programs that are available for men in recovery, for women in recovery, for our youth. We have programs for healthy motherhood, healthy fatherhood. We have programs for whole family wellness. We have programs to help with bringing back the culture. These are all culturally based programs. And what happens with these programs is spirituality becomes normal because, you know, being in Wellbriety, you have to be balanced mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. The community starts to heal through this great learning law. So that's how we're facilitating that. So changes from within, in order for development to occur, it must be preceded by a vision, and then a great learning must occur. And then you must create a healing forest. That's the fourth law. So the healing forest model, it's like you have a forest in a community, and it's only as healthy as its roots and its environment. And let's just say that you had a forest and it was sick, and you took a tree out of that forest and you gave it all the nutrients and, you know, sunshine and vitamins and water and all the things that it needed to be a healthy tree. But you took that healthy tree and you put it back into the sick forest. So what do you think would happen to that tree? Well, that tree would get sick again. And so what we're trying to do with creating this healing forest is we're trying to bring back traditional cultural practices, ceremonies, teachings from the elders, understanding of a person's place in the universe. And that can enable individuals to make positive and healthy choices about their lives. So in our communities, they're characterized by, you know, dysfunction and, you know, codependency, depression, violence, all these other things. But the elders have told us that these conditions are generated by a system that's based upon the anger, guilt, shame, and fear. So our role now as community leaders is to start creating a healing forest. So if the community is to change, then change has to occur at the root level by creating a different system. So how do we do that? We're looking at a concept of creating intergenerational healing instead. So that's a combination of immense healing, community training, and a return to ceremony, spirituality, and cultural ways by bringing back culture and language and the land and people's health mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, their way of life, religion, and rebuilding the family structure. The Wellbriety movement, you know, what is this Wellbriety movement all about? You know the definition of Wellbriety, but what is it? What is the movement? Well, what we're saying is we are the people that we have been waiting for to facilitate change. And the Wellbriety movement was born and introduced to Indian country in 1998. And what we started to do is create these webs or these groups of, you know, pockets of recovery and healing across the nation. And so the movement now is a live force, and it consists of large numbers of people that are interconnected with a focus of working on wellness. There's one message, but it's carried by many different messengers. So there's many different pathways to recovery and healing. And Wellbriety is all inclusive. It's not just for Indigenous people, it's for red, yellow, black, and white. We recognize that, you know, there's a lot of people, Native and non-Native, that are part of this movement. And so it doesn't matter what your earth suit looks like, we're all inclusive. But we believe that the power of healing is in the community. So the community is the therapist. The community is the counselor, the healer. We have all the resources in our communities to heal. And, you know, we're interconnected. So it's going to take everybody to heal that community. So it's just like that great learning law. It's going to take everybody, and it's going to take place through an application of cultural and spiritual knowledge. And healing in the community is entirely possible, and of yourselves. So it's going to take everybody that's involved in mental health and treatment and schools, and it's going to take our friends and family. It's going to take, you know, law enforcement. It's going to take our collegiate recovery programs. It's going to take the entire village to bring people to the circle to talk about healing. So we got to change together. And what our goal is to get everybody working towards the same vision and goal. It's to motivate people to participate, to develop the skills and knowledge through training, through education, through implementing cultural values and tradition, to create a positive, supportive environment to sustain these changes. And so, you know, we have to take a look at what we have in our community to help us. What do we have at our fingertips that we can bring to the table? So We have youth programs, we have mental health programs, we have support and recovery meetings, we have spiritual advisors, we have our collegiate recovery programs, we have online support groups now. And, you know, the Wellbriety movement has begun to expand. So we have these different programs, our Medicine Wheel and 12 Steps for Men and Women, which is our treatment and recovery program for adults, our Daughters and Sons of Tradition, which is our youth prevention program. We have our Medicine Wheel and 12 Steps for Youth, which is a treatment and recovery program for youth. And then programs for family recovery, Mothers of Tradition, Fathers of Tradition. We have actually partnered with the National Association for Children of Addiction, and we have taken their evidence-based program called Celebrating Families, and we have incorporated a cultural overlay into the program to make it applicable to Indigenous communities. So it's Wellbriety and Celebrating Families. It's a whole family wellness program. We're actually going to be working on getting more involved in the collegiate recovery field. So our goal is to create group starter kits that can be given out to get groups going at tribal colleges or within universities or colleges that have large Indigenous populations or clubs. So we're really excited about that. We're going to be trying to launch that this year. Then we have a program for healing from this grief and trauma. This really helps. It's like a foundational program because it helps you to understand how trauma continues to manifest and impact our communities today. And that's not just for Indigenous people. A lot of us have gone through early childhood trauma or seen trauma in our lives in some capacity. So the Wellbriety movement is expanding. We're going to be offering a program for youth for life skills. We're going to be offering a program for veterans. We have some of our programs and books being translated into Spanish and for the deaf community. And then we have literature. So these Wellbriety books and materials are available online. And we have an online store that you can order through Coyhis Publishing. And the most popular ones are Red Road to Wellbriety. So it's a culturally based adaptation of the 12-step process, and it was modeled after the Big Book. But like instead of the doctor's opinion, we have the elder's opinion. We have programs about the history of alcoholism since first contact. We have a daily meditation book that you can purchase, but it's also available on our Facebook group and page. You can subscribe to get them emailed to you for free. And then we're also working on launching our apps on Android and iPhone that you can get those downloaded for free. We have a program and a book called Understanding the Purpose of Life, 12 Teachings for Youth. And this program it takes a focus on education, but it's about finding your purpose, and it gives you teachings to help you do that. So check out our online store if you get a chance. We're offering online meetings because, you know, during this time, and we're also practicing social distancing and things like that. But anybody that wanted to could join us for these meetings. We have them daily at 12 o'clock Mountain Time, and you're welcome to join us. We are also part of intherooms.com. They are a really wonderful resource for virtual video meetings if you can't get to a meeting. And they have every fellowship on there that you could possibly imagine, including AA and NA and Al-Anon. And they have things for women in recovery and healthy relationships and grief and sex. And on Thursday nights is our Wellbriety meeting. And then we also have one on Tuesday mornings. So check that out if you get a chance. And then, you know, this is our contact information. Any of these programs that we have, we can literally bring to your community, and you can get the training and you can find out how to get scholarships to go to the training for free. So please feel free to reach out to us, email us, you know, inquire about our products and trainings. We have an upcoming event that I probably should have posted on here, but I didn't. It's actually an All Addictions Recovery Conference that we're going to have in Colorado Springs in September. And we're going to have speakers from several different fellowships, AA, NA, CODA, gambling. We're going to have a Wellbriety speaker, and we're going to try and have a youth speaker as well, but we're inviting people to come together and just talk about recovery as a whole. So it's an all recovery meeting, and everybody's welcome to participate in it, and I'd be happy to give you more information. If you wanted to look at, getting the full the documentary that we showed a clip of, we pass those out for free. So all you have to do is email us with your address, and we will send that right out to you for free. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I had to share. And if there's any questions, comments, anything like that, I would be more than happy to answer.
That was amazing. Thank you. It was really emotive too and informative. Just as a reminder to everybody, the webinar is being recorded and we're going to upload it onto YouTube, our YouTube channel, and to ARHE's website. If you've got any questions now, we've got a few that have come in. Any more, please put them in the Q&A box and we'll get to them as soon as we can before the top of the hour. So the first question is, how many different tribes are part of the Wellbriety movement?
We work with, I don't know exactly how many tribes, as there's 562 federally recognized tribes, and then you get into the politics of state recognized and non-federally recognized. So that's definitely a hard question to answer, but I will say that we're working with tribes all throughout the US and First Nations communities in Canada. We're also starting to work with some of the Aboriginals in Australia, and we're working with some communities in Mexico as well. So we're actually going international.
Wow, that's amazing. The second question, does White Bison adapt or provide different programs and services based on the different customs or traditions of different tribes?
I'm really glad that question came up. So, one of the things that I think White Bison and the Wellbriety movement, why we are so unique in what we do, is because we provide a core set of principles, laws, and values that we incorporate into every program that we have, but they're a template. They're very highly customizable. So what you do is you take that core knowledge and you take it back to your community and you incorporate your own ceremony and your own language into the program. So, what we say is they're not going to have whale ceremonies amongst desert tribes, right? So each different tribe or community can adapt it to their needs, use their own medicines, speak their own language. And that's what makes it so unique and successful.
Okay. Now the other question, I think you've kind of answered. The question is, have you worked with CRPs, which you said you have, in specific college groups? They know that you're connected with the American Indian Science and Engineering Society when you started, but this person is curious about your work within college students right now. So you mentioned there were a few. Go on, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, so we did, so we're going to be coming out with these group starter kits so that people can go ahead and get, Wellbriety groups going in collegiate recovery. And then I'm actually serving this year as a mentee through SAFE Project. And so a mentor through SAFE Project, and I'm working with 2 mentees on their collegiate recovery. So we're coming in, providing some guidance and feedback, just kind of based on our experience, as an organization, and then, lived experience. So we definitely have a goal to get more visible within the collegiate recovery community.
Amazing. Another question, what are your suggestions for collegiate recovery staff students to wanting to further develop their overall understanding of equity, inclusion, and social justice?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Start reaching out is going to be my biggest recommendation. Start reaching out, finding out what kind of local resources there are, what kind of diverse organizations and groups are there, what are they doing in your community? And then, once you figure that out, it's kind of like doing a community assessment, right? So you figure out what are the resources that are around you, and then you bring them in and you create opportunities for people to listen to them by, letting them do talks, letting them do webinars, having panels, of, multicultural perspectives. and just advertising, giving people an opportunity to share. And that's going to be one of the biggest things that you can do, outreach, and try and get people excited about the topics that they have to offer and present on, and allow them to explain why that is so crucial to have that inclusion and opportunities for education in our communities. People in college, we come from diverse backgrounds, and we're all coming from different walks of life, and we all have to have opportunities to understand one another so that we can grow and heal as a community.
Yeah. Another question, how can someone in England access Wellbriety?
Oh, so right now our online meetings, is a really great way to access.
Through In the Rooms.
Through In the Rooms, on Zoom, we have our daily Zoom meetings and things like that. And then, we have group starter kits. So what we can do is you just have a group starter kit. It comes with all the materials that you would need to get a Wellbriety group going in your own area. So sometimes what we say is, well, if there's not a group going, go start one. Go start one. Yeah. We have Facebook pages. We have our White Bison page. We have our Wellbriety Training Institute page. We're very visible and active on social media. We have a group called Women in Wellbriety that's specifically for women. We have a Sobriety is Traditional page, so it's where people just come and share about, recovery stories. We post inspirational messages. That's one of the things that we're doing to kind of help during this time to keep the positive outlook up, because we know that our recovery community is being highly impacted by, the lack of being able to come together and, offer that in-person support. So what we're kind of doing to help with that is we're posting daily positive recovery messages. So reach out to us on Facebook, because, not only do we do that, but we do promotionals, we do giveaways, we talk about upcoming events that we're having. So, we're just welcoming for everybody that wants to learn more and participate.
I think I might join that. That sounds amazing. A question, but I think you've already answered this. Is the Wellbriety movement based on the 12 steps? You said that it was an adaptation.
So the Wellbriety movement as a whole is not based on the 12 steps, but we do have a Medicine Wheel and 12 steps programs for adults and youth. That is a culturally based adaptation of the 12 steps. So, sometimes what we get is questions about, well, are these evidence-based programs, or, how can we write this into grants? And, we find that to be a little bit of a challenge when it comes to evaluating culture and showing that as evidence-based practice. But what we found is that all of our programs have been developed using evidence-based modalities. But what we do is we take those and we incorporate a cultural overlay into the program. So for example, on the NREP website, they have 12-step facilitation as an evidence-based practice. We are a 12-step facilitation therapy program with a cultural overlay. So, that cultural knowledge is weaved in, and, we find that a lot of people relate to the way that we present the steps. And it's the same with our youth programs. What I like about the youth program the most, it's one of my favorite programs, because, I started out as a young person, and, back then we didn't have recovery high schools. We did not have collegiate recovery. We didn't have those kind of programs. And I really wish that we did, because I tell you what, I would have been very involved in that. But it's still the 12 steps, but it's age appropriate. And what we have done is we had traveled into these juvenile correctional facilities. We did the videos with young people, talking about young people issues. When I first got into recovery, I tried to go to AA and things like that. And I'm so grateful for that fellowship. Me personally, it didn't speak to me, because in my area, there was just a lot of older people, and I couldn't relate to losing my house and my family, because those weren't the issues that I was facing as a young person in recovery. I was looking at peer pressure and my social life and dealing with my family, and just learning how to cope with my emotions, on a sober basis. And that was really challenging for me. So what we've done with this program is it's still the 12-step process, but it's done in a storytelling way. So we use stories to, traditional stories to kind of help get some of those lessons across in an age appropriate way.
Oh, that's awesome. And what about treatment? How do people access treatment from Wellbriety? Do they go on?
So we don't provide direct services through our organization. So we're more of an educational organization. We go out and we train people on how to facilitate and implement our programs and the work that they're doing through their community, school, treatment center, halfway house, prison, whatever it is that they're working in. Now, that being said, we do have some Wellbriety certified treatment centers that we have partnered with. We do have them listed on our website. And what's really cool about them is that we can guarantee that the people that go there will get a culturally based approach to treatment. And so we have, I believe, 7 of them now, and that are located all throughout the US.
Oh, that's really interesting. Do we have any more questions? I think that answers all of our questions and some feedback. Beautiful presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Erin, do you have any questions?
Can't think of any. It was a really awesome presentation, and I definitely have a lot to take away from it that I'd like to research.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if we can get a copy of the slides to send out to people.
Sure.
Yeah, if you could email those to me, that would be great.
Yeah.
And Tim says thank you. That was amazing. Okay, awesome. So we asked that everybody could share this session with their colleagues once we've uploaded it. As I said, it will be on YouTube, and then I will add it to the ARHE website. Stay connected with us to find out about future webinars, and we're open to knowing how we can improve our offerings. Kateri, thank you so much for taking the time to present to our attendees. We appreciate everyone's time and hope to see some of you on our next webinar. Thank you for joining us, and take care. Oh, there is one last question. Have you got 2 minutes to answer this?
Sure.
Okay. Are there any research projects on the Wellbriety process currently in progress?
We have some scholarly articles and documentation that we would be happy to share. If you want to reach out to me, what I will do is I'm going to post my email right now, and you are welcome to reach out to me to get access to some of those scholarly articles and documentation. We did an article about multicultural peer support that would probably be really helpful, and we would be happy to just share the resources and information that we do have on people that have done research and evaluation on the Wellbriety approach.
Okay, great. I think that went to panelists, so I've added it to all attendees as well.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.